Hello and welcome to Odds Now. It's the weekly darts podcast that has no name, maybe a working title of Missed Doubles. Well, actually, this week it might be termed as Missed Singles because we are missing Matt Pieman Hill. So I am going it alone for a quick darting update as we enter that busy season, end of season, as we get towards the end of the year, the Grand Slam, the Players' Championship finals, and the big one, of course, over Christmas, the World Championship itself. Now, there was no darts on over the weekend just gone. The Euro Tour's finished. The Pro Tour has now finished. But it was for good reason that it was a quiet weekend as we entered November. The Grand Slam is just around the corner, starts a week today. And the Players' Championship season concluded last Wednesday at the end of October. That was 30 events across the year. There's 32 Pro Tour events next year. So when we say the Pro Tour, that is where 128 players turn up at the likes of Leicester or Barnsley or Wigan mainly, and they play best of six legs and they go all the way down to one man between 1 o'clock and about 6:30. The action comes quick and fast. It's not on TV, but it is very much entertaining and available on PDC TV. And that's something that Matt and I really enjoy watching. It's consistent through the year with events spread throughout the year, and you can get a real feel of who is in form and who is not in form. But more importantly, they then have to take that floor form to the big TV stage. So when you're watching Sky Sports over the Christmas period and they say it's about time he did it on the big stage and he's good on the Pro Tour or on the floor events, that's what they're referring to, the Players' Championship. So there was 21 different winners across the 30 Players' Championship events in 2024. As we say every week, Matt and myself, the depth in quality and the spread of quality and people and players that win titles is fantastic at the moment. There is not that dominance of a Michael Van Gerwen from 6 or 7 years ago and a Phil Taylor from 17 and 16 and 17 years ago. It's not this, so it spread the talents there, and we had a whole host of different winners. There was 14 different unique winners in the first 14 events of the Players' Championship, which was something pretty amazing. And a couple of players to note, really, from the conclusion of the season last week. In Players' Championship 29, Cameron Menzies got over the line to win. And there was no player more deserving throughout the whole of 2024 for a Pro Tour title than Cameron Menzies. And it was good to see him get over the line. He'd previously made three semi-finals and 3 quarterfinals on the Pro Tour this year. So good to see him get over the line. That was in Players' Championship 29, beating Stephen Bunting in the final, no less. And that is Stephen Bunting's 4th final loss in a Pro Tour event this year. He actually made 4 of the last 7 Pro Tour finals, or 4 of the last 7 Pro Tour events. Stephen Bunting was in the final and lost on all 4 occasions. He actually went back-to-back finals a month or 2 ago in consecutive days and lost both of them. On the final day of the Players' Championship season, Josh Rock, for his 2nd title of the year, beat Johnny Clayton 8-7 in an absolutely fantastic game. Josh Rock averaging well over 102 and Clayton over 106 himself. And it continues that theme that we've alluded to on this channel previous weeks, that Johnny Clayton is getting back to form. And want to keep an eye on in those majors as we enter that kind of season, end of season. Just a couple of names to shout out there. And with the conclusion of the Pro Tour, we now have the confirmed runners for the Players' Championship finals. It does as it says on the tin. The top 64 in the Pro Tour rankings all convene to Minehead for 3 days of brilliant action over the weekend of the 22nd to the 24th of November. And this is where you see some wild rankings, if you like, or some wild first round ties because of the rankings in the Players' Championship. So, for example, Chris Dobie is up there as the number 1 seed. I think Chisnell's number 2, so we wouldn't be used to seeing that in the usual world rankings, if you like. So, yeah, really quite interesting, and it'll throw up some pretty amazing, opening round ties. That is for sure, and we can look forward to that at the end of the month. But before then, we've got the Grand Slam. And at the back end of last week, so they played Pro Tour on Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Thursday last week in Leicester, they played the final Grand Slam qualifier with 8 spots up for grabs. Now, neither Matt or myself agree on the qualification process for the Grand Slam. We think it's a bit of a mess, and in some ways, unfair. And there's some big names missed out that were in that final shootout qualifier that hadn't already qualified. Anyone not already qualified with a Pro Tour card could turn up and try their hand in the final Grand Slam qualifier last Thursday in Leicester. And the likes of Heta, Dobie, Clayton and Searle all missed out. They've actually won this year 7 Pro Tours between them. Out of the 30 events, 7 of them have been won by Heta, Dobie, Clayton and Searle, and none of them are in the Grand Slam. We've seen Clayton's a multiple major winner. Dobie won a Masters. Is that a major? Is it not? It's a big TV title. Premier League player in his own right. Heta, who's pretty highly ranked. He's in the top 10 of the world, not in the Grand Slam. And Searle has been there in and around the top echelons of the game, waiting to break through that ceiling for a few years now. None of those guys are in the Grand Slam. Now, I know that darts is always 501. A couple of events are double start, but it's normally 501 straight down and out you go. So I do appreciate that the PDC have got to do different things and look for different tournaments and different concepts and processes and different ways of tournaments. So the Grand Slam, it used to be, and it initially was, where the BDO and the PDC clashed. The only event of the year where that happened. Well, now there is no BDO. They've had to extend or spread the net wider to get the qualification process for the Grand Slam itself. There's the group format, which is unique for the Grand Slam. That's the only darts tournament where they have that group format, and then they go on to the knockout rounds thereafter. And like I say, they have to try different things, or it could get repetitive throughout the year. But to qualify, I mean, as you would expect, the winner of the World Championship gets a slot in the Grand Slam. The winner of last year's Grand Slam gets a slot in this year. Premier League, Match Play, Grand Prix, Masters, UK Open, European Championship, Players Championship finals. I've not really got any problems with that. But what happens is when the same player is winning multiple of those events, i.e. Luke Humphries won a load of those events that I've just listed, it opens up the spaces for the qualifiers, the spare spots, if you like, for that final day. This year there was 8 places up for grabs. Next year there might only be 2. So that changes as we go on. But can we really accept that we're giving guaranteed Grand Slam spots to runners-up of some tournaments? For example, the World Cup of Darts. The runners-up in this year's World Cup of Darts were Austria, Raubi John Rodriguez and Mensur Sulovic, who are away from the World Cup of Darts in 2024. And there's an argument, should the World Cup of Darts even be taking place every year? I would say not. But away from that tournament, those two have done very, very little in darts on TV and on the floor. Yet they're qualified for the Grand Slam at the expense of people like a Chris Dobie, like a Damon Heta. Not for me. The World Series of Darts runner-up. Now, that berth is always likely to be one of the big names. But we've got to remember, the World Series of Darts is an invite-only competition and they go and play local players. It's basically, in a nutshell, the Premier League players go on a world tour to Australia and Bahrain and America. The runner-up of that is guaranteed a spot in the Grand Slam. Not for me. And then you get runners-up in all of those events I've mentioned, really. World Championship, Grand Slam, Premier League, World Match Play, World Grand Prix, Masters, UK Open, European Championship, Players Championship. The runner-up in those events are guaranteed a slot in the Grand Slam. It's not for me. And to be fair, they have got other ones, other qualification spots in there as well. Some of which you could argue for or against. Really, I mean, there's a European tour. So if there's anyone that's not qualified through those tournaments listed, any outright winner of a European tour qualifies. So that brings in the likes of Martin Schindler, that hasn't been in any of those finals, runner-up or winner, but they're qualifying for the Euro Tour. Dave Chisnell gets in there, and a couple of others. We've got additional qualifiers. The PDC World Youth Championship. Now, for the last couple of years, that has produced some very good winners. Luke Littler won the PDC World Youth Championship last year, and the runner-up was Jan van Veen. But in previous years, the runner-up might not be of that great. So should the runner-up of the World Youth Championship, I know they need to be given a chance, but should they be qualifying automatically for the Grand Slam? Not sure about that. You've got the Asian Championship, the Continental Cup, the PDC Women's Series, runner-up in the order of merit. Should they be qualifying? Not sure. I know they're trying to, spread the game to new areas and new faces and new people. But yeah, really questioning the qualification criteria for the Grand Slam. I think it needs a rethink. Like I say, those players that aren't playing, so if you compare these players that aren't playing, Heta, Clayton, Dobie and Searle to these players that did qualify on the final day. Keane Barry, Martin Lukeman, Ryan Joyce, Danny Noppert, Cameron Menzies, James Wade, Mickey Mansell and Ross Smith. Now, we can pick holes in all 8 of them if we wanted to, but you don't need me to tell you that some of those players aren't quite up to the standard of the Dobies, the Searles, the Hetters and the Claytons. That might be ran over on the Grand Slam. And I'm hoping that later in the week, Matt and myself, and possibly Connor from Darts Now, our friend from Darts Now, will be returning to give you a full betting preview of the Grand Slam. The groups are out, the betting's out. Who do we fancy to win it? Who do we fancy to possibly not go so well? So that make sure you're tuning in to Odds Now later in the week for the Grand Slam preview. And whilst we're at it for this week, as we always do, we round up with the World Championship of Darts betting markets. Has anything changed? No, not much has changed since we last spoke, given that there hasn't been any major events on TV since then. But I'm guessing that there'll be a bit of a shake-up after the Grand Slam. As you can see, as we were really, Luke Humphries is the rightful favourite at just under 2.5 to 1, or just over 2.5 to 1. And then Littler's in there following him at 100 to 30, and then it's the usual names thereafter. So, yeah, very much as you were, pretty deep. I mean, when was Michael van Gerwen last? 15 to 2 to win the World Championship. You would have to go back some years, but it's been proven right pretty recently because he's not won any of the last 3 or 4 renewals. If you go back from, Humphries last year, Michael Smith, I know Van Gerwen was in the final there. So, yeah, just shows a sign of the times, really. And, we've got new names in there like Wessel Neiman is now as short as 55 to 1. He's going to have a pretty low ranking going into the World Championships. And I think it's really important to have one of those rankings, in the top 4 or top 8 to potentially avoid the other guys ranked around you early doors. But look, you're going to have to beat some big names to lift the title down at Alexandra Palace, as we know. So that's the roundup for this week. Hopefully we'll be back next week with Matt at the helm as well. And there'll be no more solos as we really crescendo towards the end of the dart season. And we'll have everything you need to know here on Odds Now. Thanks for tuning in.